focus on cloud and colocation, data center industry trends, and dynamic market.
Hi, good morning everyone. It's Dan Scarborough here from Data Center Hawk. I'm excited about today. I'm here with Nigel Clarkson, who is the CEO of Stratus Data Centres, and we're talking about data centers in Europe and in Asia.
Hi. Good to see you again, Dan.
Yeah, hi Nigel. I'm hoping that a lot of people listening to this will know your name. You've been around for probably longer than I have.
Yeah, true.
But for those of our listeners who don't know you, maybe you could give a bit of background on yourself and a bit of background on Stratus for the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Nigel Clarkson from Stratus Data Centres. You can hear from my dulcet tones, I'm not from the UK, I'm from Australia. So a chartered surveyor by trade. And really, rather than sort of go over the property piece, in terms of data centres, fell into them in 1998 when I was head of European property for British Telecom, probably like most telcos in sort of that period, building out data centre platforms across Europe. So I did around 13 data centres over a period of 4 years for a lot of the joint venture partners of British Telecom, the likes of VIA Intercom in Germany, Albacom in Italy, BT Telecomunicaciones in Spain, and Telfort in the Netherlands. So, and then from there, ventured out by myself, teed up with an old colleague from Jones Lang, with his partner Raymond Kwok. Kwoks have, of course, a public listed company called Sun Hung Kai in Hong Kong. And through the Kwok family office, we developed 5 data centers over a period of 8 years. Clients such as Fujitsu, Colt Telecom, Royal Bank of Scotland, Marsh McLellan, Unisys Corporation, to name a few. And then in 2013, so we sold that portfolio out. In 2013, I teed up with another Asian-based family called the Tao Chow Bol family. We listed the first data center REIT in Bangkok in that period. And then in 2015, met a group called EXS Capital, and we started the Stratus platform. And that's a very different data center offering in terms of we are a pure data center developer. So we stay at the real estate level. So we'll identify buildings to convert or identify land to, of course, build on, secure the planning, secure the power, build a building, build to suit. And probably the best analogy I could use, there's a group called COPT in the States, and COPT are probably very similar to us. They stay at the real estate level, build to suit, triple net leases, and don't go up the value chain in terms of facilities management, co-location, etc. So, we are a pure play developer.
Very interesting. So I would consider you, although you're not a new entrant in the market.
No.
Personally,
no.
Stratus is one of the more newer entrants into the market.
Correct. Yeah.
But I think what's quite exciting for me is that you're very active in both Europe and in Asia.
So we're actually headquartered out of Hong Kong and Singapore. That's where our capital base started, with a group called EXS Capital. And Eric Solberg, who runs that, is majority owner of Stratus. And we have a pool of investors that we present the projects to. And as you said, we have an Asian-based platform run by a gentleman called Alex Perkins, ex-Jones Lang, Hong Kong. And if we look over here, you've got myself and Stephen Kirby, ex-Cushman's, who do the property piece over here.
And can you give us a bit of an insight into what your plans are in Europe and Asia?
Yeah, so at the moment we have several opportunities or developments, I should say, in Europe. First one is our largest, our sort of signature project, which is the Frankfurt 325 megawatt 2 million square feet GFA campus in Frankfurt, Maine. That will start coming out the ground August this year in terms of site works. We then have a new opportunity, 150 megawatt campus again, 3 buildings. That's about nearly 1 million square feet. And that's 150 megawatt site just to the west of Berlin. And Berlin's interesting because Mr. Tesla, Elon Musk, has soaked up all the power in Berlin, literally a gigawatt. So very difficult to find, land with power. But we've stumbled across a particular site where we can do some drawing down of HV lines onto a substation. So we're fortunate there. Another opportunity, which is in DD in Munich. And then we have been working on several schemes in London, one particularly in Belvedere to the east of London.
Awesome.
And then in terms of Asia, so flip side. So our main focus was Singapore until the moratorium started. So, that moratorium is nearly 2 years old. We had one particular site that was, again, a 100 megawatt campus. Unfortunately, until this moratorium expires, there's no development there. So we have been focused on Tokyo. We have 2 sites in DD at the moment, and the other markets, Navi Mumbai, we're particularly in head to term stage on a site there. And lastly, South Africa, particularly Joburg. Again, that's going to be a joint venture. What we tend to do slightly different with Asia is we tend to go into joint ventures because you really do need local expertise, local people that know the legalities as to what you need to do. Whereas Europe, is our backyard. Being ex-BT Europe, I've done work in all of those localities, so I know it like the back of my hand. But Asia, particularly, you do need to have that sort of local focus. So in all of those localities, although I haven't named the joint venture partner, we will have a joint venture arrangement in each of those localities.
And are you seeing all of those sites kind of coming online around the same timelines in the next?
No, quite a mix. So if we look at Navi Mumbai, hopefully that will come out the ground end of this year, beginning next. So we're going through the planning, permitting, etc. at the moment. South Africa, actually, because of the joint venture and the JV partner where they've got to, that could be potentially in the next 3 to 6 months. Whereas if you look at Tokyo, we're only in DD, waiting on the likes of TEPCO to give us the necessary go in terms of power. I mean, the other locations we are looking at is the secondary markets, Philippines, Taiwan, and Vietnam. And the reason is because no one's really looking at those localities. You don't have the incumbents like DRT and of course Equinix in those locations. So we've been starting to mobilize into those markets.
I was going to ask you, how you are finding the market, maybe in Europe and in Asia in terms of competition, right? Because, there are certainly quite a few options for the hyperscale demand. Are you finding them welcoming a new entrants, or how are you finding it?
Well, I think given although yes, we're a somewhat of a new entrant. If you look at the people that work for us, they've been in the data center industry for some time. Look at Steve Kirby. Steve and I met in 2002 when I was doing the Fujitsu Thurrock site in the UK. Alex Perkins has been doing data center work for at least the last 10, 15 years as head of the sort of data centers for Jones Lang across Asia. So you look at the specific people, we've been in the industry for a long time. It's just the entity name is somewhat new to the industry. I think in terms of the market, to be honest, we've never been busier. People have asked me, have COVID affected you? Yes, it has. It's affected my sleep because I'm always always on Zoom calls with, of course, Asia in the morning and the US in the evening. We're not looking, and I suppose it's good to clarify, we're not looking at all to enter the US market. Too busy. Where do you start? East Coast, West Coast? There's a lot of competition there. I mean, we are not directly also competing against the operators, the Vantages, Edge Connects, Edge Core, those groups who, they are operator groups. We actually can assist them by bringing sites quicker to market. So, there have been conversations with those sort of groups to work together, because a lot of these groups see us as sort of resource augmentation, because all we are doing day in, day out is looking for sites. That is our bread and butter, and bringing those opportunities forward to say, right, well, let's look at Joburg. We've got an opportunity. We can start putting a spade in the ground in 3 months. Whereas if someone started that site search now, they're 12 months down the track. So we see ourselves as not only assisting those groups, but also very much like the hyperscale groups. There was, and that's where that came from, that augmentation comment. One of the groups said, we just see you as helping us to get to market quicker. So, yeah. And we're not competing against them. That's the thing. We're not in competition with either the operator or the hyperscale groups.
No, I suppose lots of the operators are kind of entering that build to suit market though, right?
Yeah.
And that there's a bit of an overlap there, I'm imagining.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, of course, those groups make their margin on not the real estate. They make their margin on the services and the, per kilowatt per month that they charge their clients, which is under some constraint. Whereas we don't see that as much on the real estate side, in terms of the actual people we're probably competing against to a certain degree are the industrial users, because logistics these days, the amount of space that they're chewing up and land that they're competing with us on, the old days of where you'd be looking at industrial land at $1 million an acre. Well, that's 5, 6, 7 million an acre now, where we used to be able to offer, say, 2 million compared to an industrial user at 1. Well, they're competing with us now. So we actually see the same price. We see the Goodmans, the Prologis, etc., in the same market and same spheres as us.
How is the price? So if you look at that, I mean, I heard that Frankfurt was about 7 million an acre for land.
Yeah. So if you look at across the board, and starting with, for example, the Slough, the data center city for, of course, the UK. Recent transactions are 9 to 10 million an acre. Certainly Frankfurt, depending where you are, anywhere from 5 to 7. Of course, they quote in a euros per square meter. Berlin, here's an example for you, where there was a plot of land to the south, which had potentially 40 MVA. Asking price was 590 a square meter, euros. And they had offers from 2 data center groups. We weren't one of them, at 1,100. So nearly double the price. And the reason behind that is because it had power. That was the rationale, that, wow, here's a place that actually does have power. So, Berlin we see as a very hot market, and having, that opportunity for that 150 megawatts is, it's like a Willy Wonka golden ticket, to be honest, to find that.
Why do you see Berlin developing, over and above Frankfurt? How are you seeing that kind of?
There's a couple of things. In fact, I was on a call earlier today about it. If we look at Frankfurt, it's power, and I'll use the word power transmission constrained, not power generation. There's enough power around in the Frankfurt market, but it's the transmission of that power, the roadways, the highways, to get the power there, particularly to the north. If you need to look at potential areas of Frankfurt, you've got to go further afield towards Hanau, to the east, to secure large tracts of power transmissions, and within close proximity to sites. So we were fortunate to identify this site that had a 220 kV substation sitting next to it. So that's the Frankfurt opportunity, but it's the transmission, the TSO that's lacking in Frankfurt. Hence why people are thinking, right, this is getting too steamy. Let's move into, the Berlin market.
Yeah. Okay. And then in terms of the land price in Asia, is that equivalent in the prices in Asia, or?
I wish it was. When you look at Hong Kong, God, where do you start there? The land prices there over the last, 6 to 10 years is double, quadrupled, tripled. You name it. It's gone. Again, that's on a sort of square meter basis or per acre basis, and that really has gone from about. Really has probably doubled, and of course there's a lot of Asian groups, not only again data center, but also industrial logistics, the likes of Kerry Logistics, ESR, Logos, who are competing against you in those localities for, of course, the same piece of dirt that you want. So they have driven up prices. Singapore's a little bit different because, of course, bugger all freeholds around. You've mainly 30-year leases from the government. So on that basis, it is slightly different, but certainly Tokyo, very hot at the moment again, and Air Trunk and Daiwa House have announced major schemes in Inzai, but pricing again in those localities have increased dramatically.
So does that mean the economics of the cost to the customer is higher then, right? In somewhere like Hong Kong, what would you say in Hong Kong they're charging on a per kilowatt basis compared to?
I can probably more talk about the rental rates rather than the kilowatt rate, because of course we're talking from a shell and core basis. But if you looked at a traditional rate for industrial, let's start at industrial values. Traditional was anywhere from 11 to 12 Hong Kong dollars a month. Industrial now probably pushing at least 15 to 18 Hong Kong dollars a month. But look at, I think, I won't name them, but one of the groups who took a site in Tingyi paid something like 29 Hong Kong a square foot a month.
Yeah.
Okay. So, nearly double your industrial rates.
Yeah. It's interesting. So not only a couple more questions for you, Nigel, but so are you building these sites speculatively, or how do you?
No. So what we tend to do is we will secure the land and or building, because we do conversions, particularly where we can find a decent shed, as I'll call it, where we can insert a mezzanine deck and double space, etc. But no, we will either option up the site or in some cases buy a site, and we will then make sure that we have the necessary permitting, planning, legal use for data center. In terms of the power, we'll have a firm power offer with, they're always scheduled of payments. We would have made the first payment and moving forward. But in terms of the design, we literally design a box, and that box gives a height, a width, a depth, a volume to say, well, there's a blank sheet of paper. Whatever you do inside it is up to you. But of course, we do use our MEP groups and architects to work out a traditional design that would fit the envelope that we're getting the planning and the permitting for. So we would land bank for a period of time, land and or buildings, on the basis that once that group comes along, we'll say, well, this is what we've got, then we'll build that for you as a shell and core. Although the opportunity in Frankfurt is slightly different. We call it a powered and cooled shell. So on that basis, we're not only providing a shell and core, we're providing a cooling solution. It's just the opportunity was was there for us to do that.
And so do you find that you're getting, so on the design side, because one of the things I was going to talk to you is about, the market seems to be very focused on zero carbon,
Yep, sustainability,
and all that type of stuff.
Yep.
So are you finding that's the same in Asia and Europe, or is it more in, much more in Europe?
100%. No, 100%. So it's across the board. If we look at the work that we were doing on a Singapore deal until the moratorium came on board, we were looking at I would classify it as a tropical data center, and we were looking at much higher temperatures to the rack, whereby we would be, of course, from a cooling perspective in humid environments, you just have to go down a chill water route. You can't use free air cooling because of the humidity and the heat. Particularly looking at places near the equator, including, of course, Singapore. So we were looking at much higher input temperatures to, of course, mean that the cooling kit, the chillers, etc., wouldn't be utilized as much. I mean, we're fortunate here in Europe. There are many locations where we can do free air cooling, because 9 months of the year it's frigging cold. So and I upset someone the other week, an engineer, who I said, well, free air cooling, I describe it as opening a window. He said, well, it's a bit more than that, Nigel. And I said, well, I know that, but of course, to a layman, well, what do you mean by free air cooling? Well, it's cold outside, and if we open the window, the cold air comes in. So that's my layman's turn of describing free air cooling.
You're showing off your technical capability.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Allow me to design your data center that way. Loads of windows.
Are you finding that it forms part of the planning, the kind of carbon?
Yeah, it is. Even councils, and I'll give you an example of that. The local authority that we're working with in Berlin has asked us, there's various schools nearby, if they could utilize the rejected heat. So part of the planning and permitting will require us to take that excess heat and give it across to this particular school, and there was a hospital, I think, from memory. So that reuse of course, the heat from the data center is part of their permitting, and we will have to pay for the cost of getting it to them. So yeah, I am seeing that. Again, another thing we've been playing with for quite some time, where areas have very highly resilient HV infrastructure, playing with the idea of grid scale batteries, and our Frankfurt, where we're on a N-2, we can do that. So gets rid of all generators. No Jennies. You've got grid scale batteries. So we're looking at those sort of opportunities as well. We are going down the route of looking at solar panels, etc., but you just don't produce enough, of course, energy from the size of the buildings. So that's the only problem. Although if you look at Facebook, interestingly, in Singapore, are placing solar panels on lots and lots and lots of warehouses around them to, of course, create a much bigger pool for, of course, their power. So that is one thing that people are looking at, is looking at a combination of utilizing large logistics warehouses around them to place solar to utilize within the data center.
Yeah, I was speaking to someone today about Singapore, and he was saying that you have to be able to generate the same amount of power as you're taking from the grid from a renewable perspective. If it's a data center.
which is difficult to do if you've got a
possible, right?
50, 60, 70 megawatt data center. How do you produce that much solar? And I'm sure that they won't allow massive wind plants around Singapore.
Yeah. So Nigel, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I'm excited about your journey. I'm also excited about, not that you are a new operator, but the fact that there's more kind of competition in the market, even though it's not competition for lots of people. I think is a really good thing. So yeah, we're excited about it, and hopefully we can revisit you in a year's time and see how you're getting on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just look a bit older. That's all.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to have a beer at that time.
Oh God, yeah. God, imagine if we were still locked up. So
Yeah.
anyway.
I was going to ask you about COVID, but the COVID conversation gets a bit boring now, isn't it? Right?
Well, I do have a quick trick if you want. So if it's after 5, put your wine in a coffee mug and you sort of rub it, thinking it's it's coffee. So there you go.
Is that after 5 in the morning? Or
No. Well, 5 in the afternoon normally, Dan. So yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, my friend.
All right. Cheers, Dan.